yeah, I didn't wake up like dreaming about slinging pads and compound, that's for sure. And talking about tools all the time, that's not what I dreamt of.
Detailers Roadmap Cruise Control, where we navigate the roadways of life, business, and everything in between. Hey guys, it's Kevin Davis from the Cruise Control Podcast. I'm super excited here to be with my friend Robyn Sweet. It's going to be fun. It's going to be sweet for a dad joke, little pun, right? So I'm sure she's never heard that one before. She's going to be here talking about herself, detailing. I want to talk to her about like being a female in a male-dominated industry. It's something near and dear to my heart with my wife and all she does, but super excited for this conversation. Before I get started, don't forget to go to detailersroadmap.com. Go up there, use that little button, book an appointment with Pat. Pat will walk you through your existing website, tell you what you're doing right, what you're not doing so well, or he may say, look, you're doing everything perfectly. Thank you for your time, and send you on your way with some hints and all that. But book a little time. You can do phone call, Zoom, whatever. He'll walk you through all that stuff. It's totally free, no obligation. So go ahead and book that today, detailersroadmap.com. So, hey, I want to give Robyn's quick and easy. I was like, hey, I need a bio. She's like, how about one sentence? That would be, that's what you get. So she's going to have to fill in the gaps, but she's field application specialist for RUPES USA and owner of the Detail Lab in Chatham, New York. So she owns a detail shop and does training, does all sorts of things. But thank you so much for coming. I'm super excited for you to jump on here. I have not, to be honest, I have not engaged enough females in the industry. We did have we did have Amanda Lees, who's a marine detailer up in Minnesota, had her on. But given my background with my wife and all she does in the trades with all females and all that stuff, I'm remiss. So I'm going to try to get more of you ladies on here and tell us what's up, right? I want to ask you about your superhero backstory. We were talking before we started that this is a thing that we started doing. You have a unique, like we all have a unique story. And especially in this industry, I think that we're at a point where, like, depending on how old we are and what kind of phase we're in our career, we may have had 2 or 3 or 4 careers up until this point. So give us that backstory. I want to know as much as you want to share, and kind of give the audience, people listening, the what's up there.
Yeah. So, yeah, I didn't wake up like dreaming about slinging pads and compound, that's for sure. And talking about tools all the time, that's not what I dreamt of. But I'll keep it short and sweet. How's that? So I was a 911 emergency dispatcher for about 15 years in my local community. I literally still live and work in the same town I grew up in. So it was for our county, and I loved my job. I felt like I was pretty good at it, pretty confident with it. I loved being able to connect with people. That was something I had to learn really early on, right? Like how to connect with somebody just using one thing, and that's your voice. You have to listen to them and retain all that information and provide it, as you dispatch too. So the connection with people was really important to me. So long story short, again, I actually did have some dreams about owning a shop, but I always had an interest in like keeping my vehicles clean. It was just kind of like my thing. And if you ask my college roommates, I kept our apartment really clean too. So I love to clean. Anytime I would get stressed, I would clean. And when I started doing it more on vehicles, I wanted to just become a student. I wanted to learn more about it for my own curiosity, right? I just really wanted to dive in. So I took a class with Mike Phillips, actually down at AutoGeek, and just on a whim, like, hey, I'm going to go do this. I'm either going to love it or hate it. And I caught the bug and thought, well, I could come back and start doing this kind of part-time as a side gig, little side hustle.
By the way, what year was that you went down to AutoGeek? Do you remember?
2017.
Okay.
2017. Yeah.
Nice.
So came home and thought, I'll do it on the weekends. And my business that I kind of incorporated just took off. It was all word of mouth. I didn't do any advertising. I think I created like a little Facebook page for it, but it all started with friends and family. And I think that's really what most detailers kind of start with, right? Mm-hmm. So from wherever they come from, that's how they get into this. And I just dove deeper and deeper into, again, becoming that student, learning more, not just about the skill and craft of detailing, but owning and operating a business. and learning from other detailers, from their mistakes and, their adventures, if you can say that. And so I kind of incorporated a little bit that I learned from everybody out in the detailing industry and built my shop. I moved in here at the start of COVID, like just as COVID was hitting. Uh, yeah, I thought, well, that's all right. I'll give me a couple of weeks to kind of move in and put some paint on the walls and kind of get comfortable here because I ran out of space at the 2-car garage at home. And uh, COVID was great for me. We had a lot of people that were just maintaining their vehicles because they weren't utilizing them maybe as much. And my business just really skyrocketed then. So, uh, fast forward to mobile tech, and I had a conversation with Megan at AutoGeek, and she brought me on the team there as a trainer with Justin Lobato, and that was a cool little gig. And things just kind of like snowballed from there. Obviously, I spent a lot of time with the people at RUPES, Sarah and Jason predominantly, and they kind of took me under their wing just to, again, teach me. I was, open ears to that, and for myself at AutoGeek and for myself here at the shop. And then I got a job at RUPES. So I've been with the RUPES USA now for just about a year, and I'm a field technician, field application specialist. So I get to go around and talk with other detailers, that are still in the trenches doing the things that we as detailers do, and make that connection. So rolling back to connecting with people at 911, I'm still connecting with people today in detail shops, and then some. So that's kind of my little story.
I love it. And what's interesting about the connection part of it is like you and I don't know each other that well, but every time I see you, I just want to come give you a big hug. We had like I just you do have that as a superpower. Like you have such a
Thanks.
calm demeanor. Like, there's certain people that are like little squirrels, right? Like, those little yip yap dogs, they're like that in human form. But and so you're like, all right, well, I could only take so much. But like I want to compliment you in that every time I see you, you just have that, even now. I mean, you just have that like calming, like aura is the wrong word, but kind of just this sense of calm that you have. And I
Well,
think
thank you.
that's super cool.
I don't try for that, and I've heard that before. In fact, Megan was probably one of the first ones to kind of point that out in the detailing world, that I still have that, and I don't see it. You know what I mean? Like I
Well,
don't see that.
it's just who just what you've been. Now, did you have to train that into yourself?
So
I'm one
this
that
is
kind of like you have these like innate, you kind of have these innate personality traits and innate abilities and all that, but then you can hone them in. Is that something that you had to learn to be better at over time?
yeah. I ask myself this a lot. Was I good at 911 at my job at 911, like as a dispatcher and call taker? Was I good at that because of my personality traits and like what I already brought to the table, or was that something I picked up there? And I haven't been able to answer that. And then now that I have that, is that helping me in the detailing industry, or is the detailing like still growing that part of me? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, honestly, but I do think about that a lot. Like, was I a good dispatcher because of who I was, or did it make me who I am today? Right. Um, I will say that as a 911 dispatcher, as you can imagine, a little high stress, a little high maintenance once in a while. The multitasking part of it was the most exhausting part for me. And that's why I love detailing, because I could focus on one thing at a time, like one specific area of the car. That's what I'm working on, right? Like I didn't have 1,000 things. So I would be the one to come into my shop, work late at night, earbuds on, listen to music, listen to podcasts, whatever it was, listen to books, and just focus on one thing because it took my mind off of that multitasking, which was draining at times. So that's one thing that I think I am really good at. And I don't know if I use that daily or not now, but I know I have that skill.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine because you're on the phone with the caller. You may have to dispatch. You're in a smaller area, but maybe you're dispatching fire and police. And depending on how the paramedics run and all that. Like you've got and you're typing stuff. Like you got a lot going on with that, right?
A lot going on. Yeah, absolutely. And then providing instructions, right? So yeah, there's a lot going on there. So detailing is like easy for me.
Yeah.
Now running a business is a little different, right? Being an entrepreneur uh is different. Still a lot to learn. I'm always learning every day. but you know, it's good. It's been good to me. So it's provided me a great opportunity in life, and I absolutely love it. My shop. I run a little bit differently. It's very small community here, very rural, and it's like a mom and pop shop. It's literally what it is. It's my fiance is kind of doing all the work, and I'm just kind of behind the scenes now, which has kind of been a transition in the last few months, honestly. Um, it's a lot to balance, but we love our small town feel, and we
I
don't
mean,
want to
and
grow beyond that.
I think I want to point out something that you're in a small rural area, right? Like there's a lot of people that are like, oh man, I could never, I'll never do well, or, there's not enough people or whatever. It doesn't sound like that's been true for you to be able to actually
No,
make a living as a business and having two people involved, and at least two people. And I don't know if you have staff, you can answer that, but, I want you to speak to that, because I think that's a common misconception, is that I have to live in I
so
have to have 250,000 people in order to make any money in this industry.
right. First and foremost, it comes down to what you think is successful, right? Like, what is your definition of success? What do you want to get out of it? And again, going back to when I started, it was a side hustle. It was just a way to earn a little extra cash. When I finally had to make the decision between 911 and detailing, I really had to take a hard, long look at that math then, and can I make it work? Because at the time I was juggling two full-time jobs plus Auto Geek. Uh, and so now, even today, it's it's how I define successes in freedom, and I have a lot of freedom uh, being at the shop now. It provides me great opportunities in my life, and it's freedoms that I dreamt of having when I sat at the dispatch console. That I can definitely say, like, I dreamt of, like, what's going on outside these four walls, right? While we were sitting there dealing with high stress, chaos, and they would call when their life was sideways,
Mm-hmm.
right? So dealing with that, I'd be like, what's going on? What's good in the world? And missing out on that. I felt like I was going to miss out on that. So my detail shop provides me opportunities to be in the world. That's it. Whether it's the industry related or not, or just like my small town community, and have freedoms and more free time to spend with friends and family and doing those kinds of things. So I think when somebody's coming into this industry, or starting any business for that matter, they have to set their standard. Like, all right, what is my goal here? Whether that's financial freedom, time freedom, whatever that is, that's what they have to set their goal with.
Yeah, I think, I mean, in some of my other stuff that I do, I call it, redefining success, or success redefined. And, I've used the line on the podcast: if if money is your goal, you'll never make enough. Right. Like,
Right.
that is the main goal. And, like, it sounds like to me that you're doing exactly what I wish other people would do, which is you're using this opportunity to build your life, not the other way around. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's our lifestyle is built around the shop, and now my position at RUPES, and I get such fulfillment out of helping others now, and having those conversations while talking about pads and tools and all sorts of things too, right? But that's part of the connection, and I
Yeah.
love sharing that with others and hearing it from others. Still, I'm still learning from everybody that I meet. So, yeah.
I want to talk you through this journey into, and essentially what you are is, you're a trainer, right? Like, I know that
Yes.
it's a fancy name. Like, Justin likes
Yep.
his reflection artist name, and all that stuff. I give Justin a hard time about that. But, like, I mean, if, like, we make up all these names, but basically you're training people how to use RUPES products, right? Like, that's kind of
Correct.
your, and along the way, how to do it properly and all that. So,
Yep.
what is it that you brought to these trainings, and your ability, like, is it an ability to teach and communicate? Because you haven't
Mm,
been around since, like, the beginning of McGuire's, like Jason Rose was at 1917. I think he was there, 1897, whatever it was. And please, I'm just making fun of everybody today. I'll make sure I text Jason and tell him that I called him old. He's not that much older than me. But what I'm saying is, like, so many times I think people are like, well, she's only been detailing for less than a decade, or what, whatever. What can she possibly teach me? And I just, and I'm not saying that that's the case, but I think that that's something. We have kind of this two sides of this coin, right? We have people that are like, really are good detailers, but not good teachers, right? Like they probably have 30 years of experience, but they shouldn't be teaching, right? Like they just are not, that's just not their gifting. And then you have someone like Jason Rose, who is not only, has that tons of decades of experience and knowledge, and he's brilliant, but he is one of the best teachers that I know, like in industry. And so I'm curious, like, what you think that looks like whenever, because you pretty early on in your career, you're at Auto Geek already, you're training and all that. Like, walk me through some of that, because I want to just bring that to the forefront. And I'd like to kind of differentiate that. Like, if you're looking for someone to teach you how to do things, these are the things that you should be looking for in those people.
Mm-hmm. My honesty, my humbleness, and exactly what you said earlier is my ability to just kind of like stay calm and work through something. I might not have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. I will never walk into a classroom. Hopefully, this is how it goes. I don't walk into a room with the feel that, the students feel that I already know my shit.
Right.
Right? I might be able to teach them a thing or two, but I'm there to also make a connection with them and work through things. So I don't expect that I'll ever know as much as I need to when I walk into a room. How's that?
Yeah.
It's a tough question.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do people trust in me? I don't know. I've been through a lot of RUPES training, so I have a lot of technique and skill and knowledge of just our brand and our tools and our products. And my mission is to just bridge the gap between RUPES as a corporation and the end user.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I'm thinking about it, it's kind of like my role at my shop too, like bridge a gap between a high flow, like high turnover detail shop that some people might be accustomed to the small, I know everybody by what they drive in town, right? Like I see my clients out on the street all the time and I know them by what they drive. So again, it's that connection. It's that relationship that I have with people that I hope that I can bring to the table for RUPES as a trainer or the industry as a trainer. How's that?
I really like that. And I like what you said about your shop, because I think that there's probably 3 or 4 different kind of shops on that continuum, right? And medicine's very similar. I now in the US, we're in a, the weird, like, basically, if you want good medical care, you have to do boutique medicine is what they call it, which is kind of like no insurance, kind of you're paying premium and all that. So it sounds like that your shop is almost a boutique type detailing, where it's like small feel, very personal service. And then you kind of have the next level, which is kind of somewhere in between, not quite high volume. And then you have like high volume. But it sounds like that. Did you intentionally set out to build it that way?
By a mistake. Like it literally just happened that way. And that is exactly it. So to answer your question earlier, no staff, myself, my fiance, who's doing mostly the hands-on, he's literally out there today. And if I have downtime between RUPES stuff, I try to help out, but he's kind of taken over. But before RUPES, it was just me. I've never, other than my good friend from high school, she worked with me for a season. I've never hired official staff. Probably because out of stubbornness, I can do it on myself. I also love doing it. And when it comes to the feel that I want to provide my customer, I take 1 vehicle a day. That's it. Sometimes like 2, I'll squeeze them in. But the goal is 1 vehicle a day. If it takes 4 hours or it takes 12 hours, it's 1 vehicle a day. If I'm home at 2:00 in the afternoon, that's awesome, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we do late nights, oh well. but that's that personal feel to it. So yeah, I don't think I sat down and like wrote like a vision of like what the detail lab would look like. It just kind of happened that way. I just roll with it.
I mean, I love that. And I want the listeners to kind of, what I want them to hear about this story that we're telling is basically like you have created a business that suits like your lifestyle, like it supports your lifestyle. And it's something that you have deliberately, you know, you said by mistake, but you've made decisions along the way to create what you've created. Like, I'm not going to fill my book and work 18 hours a day. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. And, you know, it's nice whenever you're looking for a mate that you can, you know, have detailing experience as a prerequisite, I guess. I don't know how that worked out, but
The funny thing is he didn't. He didn't.
that's probably better. Actually, that's probably better.
I
He
had
didn't
to
know
train.
quite what he was signing up for.
Right, so that my training continues, right?
Yeah.
So you can bring
Yeah.
him and ask him if I'm a good trainer, I guess.
Yeah. There you go. But I mean, you know, you're allowing the business to serve you. And I think so many times in the industry, and maybe you've seen this, you can comment about this, but I think so many times in the industry, we have this like, gotta grow, gotta make more, gotta do this kind of mentality, right? Like, I think that's, and a lot of times I've had conversations with people. I had one where a guy, and I think I've mentioned this on the podcast, guy was like, I go to work in the morning at my shop and I hate it. And then he said, I know I shouldn't hate it, but I hate it. And I'm like, well, maybe this isn't for you. Like maybe this is not really your thing. But I think a lot of people get that to that point because they haven't really set themselves up for success in that way.
Right. Why show up to something that you hate? Why continue? Why continue? That's my question. Like that's, you know, I was going to ask you this, and if this is one of my questions for you, but like, what are the trends with the industry? Sometimes I feel like I don't follow the trends. I don't even know like kind of what's happening out there. So maybe you can kind of answer to that. Like I'm more in person with everybody, but I don't really know what's going on like business wise, right?
I think really, you know, I've been in the industry for 20 plus years, but like on the, you know, in the forward facing since I launched Detailer's Helper like 15 years ago. And I can say that, you know, a lot of the guys that were, you know, I went to Mike Phillips's class back in the day and all that, but like all like kind of what I would consider some of the not OGs, but like the middle level OGs, you know, I've kind of fallen into that, you know, because I'm 50 something and it kind of fall into that range. I don't think much has changed overall in that time. I mean, I think that when I look at like the industry as a whole, I'm like, I don't know any of these guys or girls, right? Like in a lot of cases, I'm not on detailing groups and that kind of stuff though. But I think when I talk to detailers and when I go to the, you know, I went to Naziol training at RUPES in Louisville. It is Louisville, by the way. If no one try to correct me, it's Louisville. Right. The other day, I'm having the same conversations I've been having since I was doing, you know, business related videos 15 years ago. It's like, all right, well, insurance and sales and business related stuff. And that's kind of my thing, not like, how do I really make this paint as shiny as possible? But I think there's still the same problems. I think there's still the same ambition. I think there's still, we now have tools. And I don't want to insult anybody, but it's a relatively low barrier of entry overall. The industry doesn't take a ton of knowledge. It doesn't take a ton of money. And now with tools like, I mean, seriously, like, you know, this is no spiff for RUPES, but like the systems that you guys put out really have made this job so much easier than it was 20 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll take a little credit for RUPES. I'm sure they'll thank you. Yeah. Like that is our goal, is to make things more efficient and simpler and get the job done faster, more efficient, more profitable. That right there is the end goal. I think that probably rings true with most products on the market, whatever we're talking about. Mm-hmm. I would hope so anyway. I hope all the the companies stand behind that. But, you know, yeah, I think you're probably right. Like the trend of business hasn't really changed. Maybe social media has a huge influence on that. If that's your thing, I have found a lot of times I see detailers detailing for other detailers. So
Oh
meaning like
yeah,
they're,
that's always.
posting, they're posting for others for like if you call it clout, I guess. But that's just not something I ever really do or care to witness, to be involved in. It's just not who I am. I'm also
Yeah.
not much of a social media person. I try, uh, but I think personally that stands in my way of being successful myself, right?
Hmm.
If I'm worried about what every other detailer is doing, I'm in my own way. If I'm worried about what every other trainer in the industry is doing, I'm in my own way. I'm wasting time and energy worrying about what the next person, company, trainer is doing. Uh, I just don't have time for that. I just don't want to spend the time for that.
Or the energy, right? Like
Or the
that's
energy.
that's giving away a lot of energy. I do, I think that, yeah, I think I we still have ego. Ego is all, and I've genuinely, and again, I talk about it all the time, but I've never understood the level of ego in the industry. I just really, it was so surprising to me coming out of like a big corporate world, and in I was in fitness, and then I was in software development, and then coming into the industry more full time, especially then when, Facebook groups started and all that. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. This is some really crazy stuff, and then they're, like you said, they're, most Instagrams are for other detailers, not for customers, which I yell at everybody that I do presentations for. Make sure that you're talking to your customers. Other detailers are not hiring you, so stop posting stuff about them. I
Yeah.
will
It's
say,
so
I
easy.
think, go ahead.
It's so easy to fall into that trap though, because you're influenced by other detailers and what they're posting, and you kind of like it's the copycat thing.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
easy.
Look at this cool supercar that I polished. It's like, yeah, the paint
Right.
is probably worse than half the other cars that you've polished in terms of like when it came out of the factory, even though it cost 240 grand. But like, I will say this, that I think that what we've seen now is that this continuum gap has kind of the business people have risen to a level that we weren't seeing back 10, 15 years ago. I mean, to have 8-figure detail shops and tent and PPF and coatings and all that stuff, that's crazy. Like, to
Yeah.
me, like, that's a lot. Like, if these guys are doing 150, 160 grand a month in
Yeah.
revenue, and, to be bringing home $1 million a year in profit from making shiny paint and clean cars
Right.
is really cool. So, but I think you're seeing more of those people out there, and what I hope is that the people that are not there look at that two ways. That they look at it like, all right, what can I learn in order to be successful at my own business? And also the other side of that coin is not everybody is made to have that. More, and
Absolutely.
and not everybody wants it, and a lot of those guys that have it don't want it anymore either.
Well, that's right. Like so the guy, I don't know what, but the guy that you just mentioned that like hates going into a shop. What is that? Why is that? Like what needs to change?
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So I don't want to grow to that point. I'm happy right where I am, Is there always room for growth? Absolutely. No matter what we're doing. But uh I was always told, like when I first started this little business, of people would ask me that knew me, like, why do you want to wash cars? I don't know. I'm really good at it. Like I don't know, just to make some extra cash. And then as it started to grow and evolve, the words of wisdom handed down to me were always, don't grow too fast. Don't get too big. Don't get too big for your britches. So I keep that in mind a lot.
Now, is it that focus and that relaxation? Is that what you love about? And granted, right now you're doing more training and all that year, but like, if is that, what is it that you love about the actual detailing aspect of it?
Oh gosh, it's still the outcome. It's still uh, the smiles on everybody's faces. Even when I'm training for RUPES, like when you teach them a skill or show them the system that can cut down their time and give them even maybe a better outcome, it's that final wow. That's what feeds my soul.
This episode is brought to you by Detailer's Roadmap. Hey, spoiler alert, that's us. We all know you need a kick-ass website in order to be successful with your business. The good news is at Detailer's Roadmap, kick-ass websites, that's kind of what we do. With the latest performance, designs, and SEO strategies, Detailer's Roadmap is your one-stop shop to be successful on the web. And don't forget, we have the best support team in the industry. Whether you're an existing partner looking to improve your lead generation or you need a brand new website, Detailer's Roadmap is here to help you be successful on the web. So go to detailersroadmap.com/success and get started today. That's detailersroadmap.com/SUCCESS.
Is the outcome. And so when a customer is handed the key to their car and they say, wow, that's all I want, just to knock their socks off one way or another. That's it. That's what's built my business. It's just, it doesn't matter what kind of car I'm working on. I just want the wow factor afterward.
And
so
the check. And the check after they say wow, right? Like that's the
that's right. Yeah.
Because I think I just had this conversation earlier. I've been working with a business guy that's like, he's always been like everything to perfection, right? And then he figured out that some of his perfectionism has taught his guys that they need to spend 5 hours on an interior of a car, and he can do it in 2 hours. I'm like, well, we got a gap here in the SOP. Let's fix that. And most of it was because he had trained them that we do it at this certain level, but unfortunately we don't have the customer base to pay us for that many hours, right? So how do we bring that down? So like, do you find yourself like trying to balance between those two things, that detailer perfectionism?
Of course. Don't we all have that, like, we want it perfect? Absolutely. Do I have to tell myself that there's times it's time to walk away? Absolutely. But this is where it comes down to knowing your client and knowing what their expectations are. We hear it all the time. Set the expectation, meet or beat the expectation. That's really like, set that up with them. And how do we do that? We ask them. That's it. That comes down to even paint correction. And this is one of the things we talk about a lot in our trainings with detailers, is detailers tend to chase that close to perfect paint all the time, no matter what vehicle they're working on. One, are they getting paid for it? Like you just said, where's the check for it?
Almost never. There's like 5 guys that I can name that actually get paid to get that paint that perfect.
Right. And does the customer see that? And does the customer care? Right. So we talk about this all the time in our trainings with detailers, is set the expectation. How do you set the expectation? Ask your client. Simple. That's it. And it doesn't have to be near perfect. It really doesn't need to be. Yeah.
I always use that line from Mike Phillips that he taught in that class. He probably says it constantly still, but his customers don't know the difference between a swirl and a squirrel. That's always his famous line, is like, and that attitude probably is why I'm always a better business guy than whatever business I happen to be in. That's why I don't make a great detailer, is because, like, dude, if this guy is paying for 70% correction, I'm going to give him like 72%. Like, that's my marketing professor in college says, you don't have to be this much better. All you have to be is like just a little bit, bit better. And then the customer's ecstatic, right? Because I would never chase, like, on my own cars. Maybe that's why there's 1,500 hours worth of paint work and stuff in this stupid red car out here. But like on a customer car, like I never chased perfection. That was just not my thing. Right. That probably makes me a bad detailer, but smarter business guy, I guess.
Bigger checks.
That's right. That's right. Love it. So how do you teach that? I literally just had this conversation earlier today about, like, for your level 2, what level of correction are you trying to get to? And he's like, well, this. I'm like, well, you're not charging enough to get to that. The customer doesn't expect that. Let's revisit that. And then the other side of that coin, which I know that you are well aware of, we are running out of paint on cars. Mm-hmm. these new cars, maybe one good polish now, right? One, maybe two if you're lucky, and that's it.
Right.
There's not much paint on these cars. So how are you walking these guys through the business aspect of it, the correction aspect of it, the preservation of clear coat, all of that? We don't talk a lot about like intrinsics, the crazy stuff about detailing, but I this is a great opportunity to do that.
Yeah, so I think with those trainings, I tend to wear two different hats because I have to think about it like these are business owners, some of them. Some are also just employees and maybe just the technician. So I have to kind of talk to them at different levels. As far as technicians, I do exactly what we just said. Have that conversation, explain to them that we are removing clear coat, right? We're removing paint every time we do it. The safety, the window of that, the need for that, right? Setting the expectations, having that conversation with the clients, and then two, with the business owner, right back to expectations, clients, profitability, and creating less of a need to have perfect paint. You were kind of picking on Jason Rose earlier, and I'll do the same, but he talks about this a lot. He mentions it, that he can kind of care less whether there was another shiny paint corrected vehicle on the road. He just wants to make the jobs of those technicians easier by
Yep.
introducing them to different techniques, different tools, different products. And that's where RUPES, an innovation company, comes into play. And you have to teach them to be a technician first. That's my role, right? Is technician. The business stuff comes afterward, unfortunately. That's just part of it. But me,
And then I come in and tell them
being
to stop being technicians and start being business owners.
being a business, right? That's why we invited you to RUPES. See, you provided that, I'm sure, last week when you were there. Like
That's
what
right. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. it's a balancing act, I think, for everybody, right? Just learn from others' mistakes.
What are you seeing now with people that, if you're dealing with a lot of new technicians, they probably don't have as much bad habits, but what are you seeing now with in the industry people that you're teaching? Like, what kind of attitudes are they coming in with? Like, what kind of misconceptions? Like, what are you teaching them beyond, this is our 3-pad system, our 2 polish system, all of that stuff. Like, what are we? Because I want to help these guys, right? Like, if you're making these mistakes, this is what everybody else is doing, and this is how to fix them, right?
Well, we're all kind of learning from one another's mistakes.
We're all just making this crap up as we go along. That's what I say. That's what I say.
Life, yeah. What am I seeing? I see a lot of that. Social media has to be this. You have to work on a celebrity's car, right? Like I get asked that a lot. Like, have you worked on celebrities' cars? Yeah, I probably have. There's still people that drive cars. Some might like nicer, more expensive cars. Some love to hold on to older vehicles. It does nothing for me personally. It doesn't fulfill me in any way to work on in fact, it stresses me out more if you've got like a higher end car, more expensive. Like now I have to be very careful about it and not screw anything up, right? So I see the trend of like this following of the detail industry from the outside of social media. And just today I had a conversation with somebody, and he said, "Oh, have you read, have you been following Reddit on whatever topic we were chatting about?" And I said, "I haven't. Can you tell me what's going on? I'm completely out of it." No,
Like, no, I work for a living. No,
right. The only time I go on Reddit is when I want a question answered.
That's right. That's right.
I'm looking for the answer myself. So that's what I see a lot of is, like I said earlier, is detailing for other detailers. It's still out there. Yeah. I don't know why. Just focus on yourself and your business. Go chase clients, whatever you got to do to make it work, to get your success flowing for you.
Now, how do you teach that? Like, how do you teach them away from that? I mean, that's because you're
Say what I just did.
You're front of the lines, right? Like that's, you just be like, well, what are you getting out of that? Like, why does it matter? And like, first of all, I would rather talk to a guy that just spent a couple hundred hours working on his car and actually knows how to work on it, knows how to drive it and all that, but he's not a supercar guy. I'd rather talk to that guy than some celebrity that just went to the dealer and special ordered a car. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but like that's just not my thing. And I know I've never been a celebrity worship kind of guy, but like I want to have conversations and genuine connections like you were talking about with the people that I work with.
It's literally these conversations, and I'm very straightforward and honest, and I will say almost exactly what we just talked about. Like, it doesn't matter to me. So when somebody, will come to me and ask that question, have you worked on a celebrity? I don't just give a yes or a no. I literally go into the explanation as to why it doesn't matter to me and why my focus is on my client from my community driving the Toyota Corolla, whatever that is.
Yeah.
So, and I talk about my own experiences, and maybe that's my way of connecting with people, but I don't try to make it about me, but I just reflect back onto my own experiences there in this industry and in business ownership and building a business from nothing. And, so that I think that's how I go in. And how do I teach people that? Just talk about it. Just open book, honest, straightforward. That's it.
And you feel like that they're receptive to that?
Oh, absolutely.
That's good.
Let's be honest. Like, you can pick up on somebody's bullshit. You can't bullshit a bullshitter, right? Like, I hope that they see that I'm authentic, right?
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah. I mean, and that authenticity and making those connections is probably why you're so good at what you do. And because I think that's like, I'm not just here to educate you on what, like I'll do the details roadmap presentations and we'll talk about marketing and all that stuff. But I also want to talk about like, are you using AI and how's your family life and how's the balance? And are you taking stupid pictures with your wristwatch at 2 a.m? And why are you doing that? Like that's kind of like, I want to be like the dad of the group too, even, to try to educate some of those guys. And like you said, it's like, I have experiences and knowledge that is different than what you have. And so like, let me impart some of this wisdom, quote unquote, that I've learned. All the mistakes I've made usually is like how to not make those mistakes.
See, you're just like talking from the heart. You're talking about your experiences and we're learning from that. I'm learning from that. And I appreciate that you talk about other things other than the detailing industry because we're still all just people just trying to get by.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you said, we're all kind of just making it up as we go.
Yeah. And, I always use the phrase, we're not curing cancer. We're making shiny paint, right? Like it's really not that important. Like, I think we have this sense of self-importance in so many, like in our society in general, we have that. Right. But I think this whole, like the ego is driven by low self-esteem, right? Like that's always, and so like, I'm trying to prove something to somebody and waste it. I always tell people, stop wasting your emotional energy on people that don't matter and on comments that don't matter and that kind of thing. And it's this weird kind of, mess spaghetti sort of thing of these low self-esteem, over ego, trying to prove other people wrong, all of this stuff. And I think that's what gets all gelled together, but that's also what kind of makes us human. Right.
Right. And if that's fulfilling to them, they're going to continue to do it. Right. If that's driving them, that's just who they are. So who are we to stand in their way? Kind of thing. I don't have
to waste my emotional energy on that. Right. Like stop, I will say that if people bug you, just don't worry about it. Just move on and do what you need to do. Because I think that it's just, you just give away way too much of that. I've only got so much emotional energy and I have just a few people I want to give it to, well, let's talk paint. I mean, like, let's make this an actual detailing thing. Cause I'm curious. I am not detailing full time. Like I actually went up and I used my Bigfoot, a blue pad, a yellow pad, and the appropriate polishes and compounds to polish my shower yesterday.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I polished all the hard water stains out of my shower because there's literally no chemical that can get some of that stuff off. We're on well water, even though we soften it. and then I coated it. So I won't, I was kind of going the full thing. But side note, when you hit some water and you have too much compound on your, like there was a little bit of water in the little seam, and it literally threw polish all over the room. Luckily I was in my little shower, so I was like, this is why I don't detail full time. It was like old school rotary. Like it threw just this rooster tail of polish, because I may or may not have had the machine up to 6, but
well, it's also like putting somebody who's never used a rotary on a rotary, and we stand, off to the left hand side.
Yeah, watch him put the stuff down and then go straight to it and hit it. Yes. Yeah, I love that. I've got a lot of streaks from aprons and belts and that kind of stuff. But are we in a situation, like, what does this industry look like over time, as far as you're seeing? Like, obviously paint has changed. We went waterborne a few years ago. They purposely put in orange peel because that and metallics, in order to make sure that it, so it looks better and they don't have to put as much on. So we're really, like, I hear people like, yeah, I've got this new GM 1500 Silverado. I flattened that paint completely. I'm like, well, I hope you have good insurance, because in a year from now, there's no paint left on that thing. So, but like, what are we seeing? Like, where do you see this trend going, as someone that works with paint all the time and these systems? Do we need to be adjusting how we're approaching all this?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think it's on us, maybe as the middleman, meaning us as like somebody who works with manufacturers, the OEM, to learn from them. And we're also working with, the paint companies and their systems. So kind of be the middleman, bridge the gap, if you will, to provide that new information and intel to the end user, aka the technician or detailer. Because nobody's out there with, that's not on social media that all of a sudden these companies are using less and less paint, unless you're following detail groups, but it's not something that the general public knows. So especially for those who might be newer to the skill, to the trade, we have to inform them. So we learn every day when we go out and meet with manufacturers. So we just tell them what we're seeing happening there. And I think the more and more that people kind of get together and meet one another, not just those in the industry, but those working on vehicles every day, and having those conversations like, oh yeah, I worked on, like you said, the Silverado, and I worked on this car, and this one had thin paint, and just kind of spreading the word, I guess, is what we're trying to do. So it's tough though, because everything's evolving rapidly. So I don't know what the trend is, but I do feel like there's a lot more people more open to learn than maybe that I expected. Maybe that's news to me. I just thought most people were kind of stuck in their ways, and that we would only be working with and training and teaching new to the industry folks. And that's not the case at all. There's a lot of people out there that have been doing this for a long time, still wanting to learn because they see that things are evolving. So that's a cool trend, right?
Yeah.
That's a trend.
That's awesome. I mean, just the fact that they're understanding that time is money. And if we do things, and you don't have to have 47 different kinds of compounds and polishes that you've now bought for the last 5 years. And, not every car needs a different setup. And it's not rocket science, right? Like now, do you
RUPES
think
isn't doing this in just automotive paints, right? We're not just in detail shops.
Right.
So I think that's something that's kind of been lost a little bit, is that RUPES is, very well known in the detailing industry, but we're in other industries as well. So, woodworking, aviation, marine, industrial, we're kind of learning a lot from all of those industries and kind of bringing that in together. I think that might be something that's not very well known for the detailers that know RUPES, is that we're in a lot of other areas.
Yeah.
So,
and RUPES is a company, I mean, because you guys have been around since 1947, the company, I think, right? I may or may not have a few things that have RUPES on them. So, and each one of those, they purpose build systems, right? This is a little bit of part of what Jason's job is too, is testing and development and that kind of stuff. But they develop specific systems for those industries and applications, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And they all work really well together. I'm interested in going really quick back to the automotive side. Do you think we will get to a point where like we're just one step is kind of like we're just going to do a one step and be done with it? Like I love one steps. I hate doing it more than once. Like I want to go around the car. I want to go around the car once. That's all I want to do.
Same, right? Absolutely. So I hope so. Here's my thing on this too. You mentioned this earlier. You were talking in percentages, and Jason Rose pushes this a lot too. Is that we talk in percentages, not one step, two step, three step, but the result in a percentage of correction. So I can get it to a, like I think you mentioned earlier, like 72%.
Which they're all they're completely made up numbers anyway. They're completely meaningless.
My 72 is different, which is different from a client 70. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think if we get out of the mindset of it has to be a 1, 2, 3 step correction, then we can definitely see big changes and dialing things in to make it one step. Because that's just more downtime, more free time, more time to get on to the next vehicle, whatever that looks like for you.
More money per hour is most important.
Money.
Put my business hat on. Like, why on earth would you do more than one step if you don't have to? And like, even, a lot of times we'll put in our packages, they put in 1-step correction, 2-step corrections, 3. I'm like, you're dumb. Just say that the car is shinier than when it got here, and it may be a little shinier if you pay a little bit more. That's really all we need. That's really all we need. That's all. Don't give the customers more information than they absolutely need or want or are willing, especially don't give them stuff they're not willing to pay for. But
absolutely.
So explain to me, I mean, we're going to pretend no one's ever heard of RUPES, which is not true, but explain to me, because people will be like, well, I've got the Bigfoot 15, I've got the 21, I have the, Nano, and I've got all these machines, what is it? Something 75, something H75. What's the name?
HLR75.
There you go. I always want to call it LHR, I think. I don't remember why.
There is LHR.
There's an LHR. So anyway, you have all these machines. And so a lot of times you'll see detail. There's like, well, I use this machine. I use this pad for cutting. I use this pad for polishing. I use a third pad for this made up thing called jeweling. I'll fight you about that. People will come at me for that one. But and then I use this compound, but this polish and then this finish, explain to me why that just makes no sense. Right. And I will caveat this in saying certain cars may require a certain type of process that may be outside of 95 or 98%. I could be wrong about that, but there may be a time to do that. But explain to me how you guys do it differently than that.
Oh, okay. So I think we were all kind of trained with this. We do a cut, a polish, and a finish. You're jeweling, right? That's how we do it.
Mm-hmm.
So we've kind of stepped away from that, and I'll bring it right back to we're trying to get it done in one step, maybe 1.5 steps. So whatever combination of tool, pad, compound, nano polish that you use, plus your own technique, because obviously we have different technique that we can change. Whatever combination of all of that makes sense to get a great final result, customer pleasing result. Whatever it takes to get that in 1 or 1.5 steps, just roll with that. Jason, again, one of his stories is that he went to a shop somewhere and they, did one step on it, and it was awesome results. It was their customer pleasing results. They were happy with it. And the guy asked, well, what do I do now? And Jason said, well, what do you mean? Well, what's my next step? Well, there isn't a next step. The next step is
take the credit card,
back the vehicle out, hand the customer the key, and take the card. Yeah. There doesn't have to always be the next step. So if you can get it done in one step, that's what we're aiming to do. Absolutely. Yeah.
And when you guys do that, now you guys have a system, right? That's also what I'm alluding to. So like there's the machine is designed like and this is something that is not really done, right? Like if I'm a pad manufacturer, I have to manufacture my cutting pads so that they work with all the machines that are on the market, right? Including the crappy ones and the really good ones and all of that. But like that may not be, they're not optimized. In the fitness world, we talk about optimizing nutrition, optimizing your workouts and hormones and all that stuff, right? That's a big thing we talk about. For you guys, for RUPES, they are manufacturing a machine. Then they make sure that, and this is order could be wrong, but the pads are engineered to work with the machine, and then the chemicals, which are the liquids, we'll call them, the liquids are then designed to work with the pads, which are then designed to work with the machine. Correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, they all work together. That is the system. Yeah, it's putting it all together and getting to the result much more efficiently and effectively. Yeah.
And is that a pretty blanket, like for most cars? Like if you just say, okay, well, I'm going to use, I do my test spot, obviously, right? I'm sure are we still teaching test spots?
We are.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're still teaching test spots. So I do my test spot. I say, okay, this one didn't work. I do another test spot. This works really well.
Sure.
And typically it's going to, like, am I going to get a pretty good result if I just use the RUPA system as my main? And this is a loaded question, right?
It is a loaded question.
But like 99%, but I want people to understand, like, if you go look at your cabinets right now, the thousands and thousands of dollars that you currently have and all that different crap that you've got. And as a guy that sells crap on the internet, feel free to buy my crap and put it in your shelf. But like, you may not need that. Like, you may have convinced yourself, and you can tell me whether this is true and talk about it. But like I think they convince themselves that I need every tool known to man in the toolbox. But in reality, I may only need these, whatever that number is, and you can tell me what that number is, but I may only need this in order to accomplish pretty much most of what I need to accomplish.
Yeah. I mean, the philosophy of RUPES is we have a heavy cut compound, a medium cut compound, and then like an ultra fine polish. Then we've got two protection. When we're talking detail world, obviously we've got other lines, like we've got our marine line now, but talking automotive finishes, that's what we've got. In the DA, we've got rotary too. We would love for you to have a bottle or two of each and every one of those. But if you can dial it in, we only need 1, 2, maybe 3 from that entire system. If that works for you and the majority of the vehicles that you're working on or surfaces that you're working on, that's what makes that's what's making you more profitable. You're spending less money on the consumable part of it, the pads, the compounds, right? We also teach you how to maintain your tool, how to maintain your pad to last longer. Like, what company's doing that? We would love for you to buy more pads and add more compound. Be heavy. We call it being heavy-handed with adding compound. You probably have witnessed this, but RUPES is, less is more compound on the majority of our pre-application or re-applications, I should say. Less is more. Like, it's a horrible business model, because if I taught you to use less, we're selling less overall. But like, again, we're making you more efficient, more profitable, ease, less mess. That mess that you're talking about in your shower, less slinging of the product, less waste of the product. Your pad will last longer. Your tools running happier. All of that is what we teach in our trainings. And it's for the end user. It's not for us to make money on, right? Because again, we're selling you less pads, consumables, all of that. So I think that sometimes surprises people when we go into trainings, is they expect like this sales pitch, and that's not what we're there to do. We're there to show you how to use it. And what company can you call, and you can talk to them about the tool, the pad, and the compound that you're using. And how do I, this is what I have, if somebody calls me today for RUPES and says, this is what I've got in my cabinet, this is a tool I'm working with, I'm having a hard time getting the finish that my customer pleasing result, can you walk me through that? Certainly. Let's talk about what you've got. Let's try something. Let's do that test spot. Let's dial it in and get to that result. And I know what they're working with when they say they've got the lineup of the RUPES system. But don't get me wrong, I was that detailer that bought on to all the new stuff and had the cabinets full of the newest product out there. And I got to have this and I got to try that. And we all do it. I mean, not even just detailing, in life in general. Oh, it's new. I got to try it. It's got to be better if it's new, right? It's not the case. So just keep things simple.
Yeah. I mean, I always lean towards, they were making really nice paint with an 11-inch rotary and Perfect It 2 back in the day. Like literally they had one liquid and they were, maybe two with some hand wax in there. And
Right.
and granted it was, paint was different, as urethanes and hard and all that jazz. But like I think we overcomplicate it. And as a guy that does marketing, we like to overcomplicate things because that makes people buy more stuff.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, what you guys are doing is what is really creating a system so that it's much more simple and repeatable and cheaper and faster. But I love that you're teaching people that you don't need 2 steps, 3 steps, 5 steps, whatever, right? Like, Jason Kilmer, I'm sure.
Yep.
So, I've talked to Jason Kilmer about some of those Riddler cars, and the process for the Riddler cars is he will go after perfection. And if he burns through the paint, they'll just repaint that panel. Like,
Right.
so like, it's no big deal. Like, so he can actually chase that, right? Like we don't, and he's in my opinion, one of the best detailers in the world. First of all, but paint correction specialist, whatever you want to call him. Heck of a nice guy. But like, we don't have that option, right? Like you don't just get to repaint the hood on a Lamborghini, or for that matter, a freaking Denali is going to cost you $8,000, because you got to blend it and all that jazz. And so, we don't need to do that. If I was going to say, hey, what, all right, I'm at your class, I'm going to come do a couple hours. I don't, a full day with you. What is like 2 things that you want me to come away with at the end of my time spending with you guys?
Maintaining your pads so that they last longer and keep them happier, keep your tools happier. And then exactly what we just talked about is keeping it simple and selling your result in a result percentage, maybe, or however you want to word it, instead of steps. Um, the consumers don't care about how many steps and how many hours it takes you to get the result they want. They just don't. They just want that shiny car. So those are the 2 things that I try to push a lot in my trainings.
I love
Yeah.
that. Now, you said earlier that, are you still trying to learn business stuff? Like, or did you feel like you dialed it in? And what were some of the big things? I should have asked this earlier, but what's some of the big things that you really struggled with from the business standpoint? Because I would venture to say probably 90% of those listening probably struggle with these same things.
Balancing time and becoming efficient, balancing my own, just time, just and what's a priority and how to manage what needs to be done first and foremost. And I still struggle with that day in and day out. Just
Well, you're
my
traveling
prioritization.
now too. What is your territory for RUPES?
Uh, well, kind of wherever they need me, but typically the northern part of
Kind
the
of east
country.
east of the Mississippi, kind of a thing is probably.
Yeah, so we have my area sales manager, Duffy, he's in New Hampshire, and we have like 23 states it is in the northern part of the country. So, but there's times like last week I was in Houston, so that's not northern, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of wherever there is a need. There's only a handful of us on the road, and we kind of split it up wherever we need to go, whatever events are coming up. So, but yeah, I'm on the road quite a bit, which
Because
is
you have yourself, Sarah, which kind of splits her time between Denver and some of the outside train. I was literally,
yeah,
we're sitting there and I'm watching her book all these different flights and all.
yeah,
So
yeah,
she's crazy. And then
yep,
Giancarlo,
yep.
and who else is kind of running around the
So,
company?
and we've got Ilya. So, but
Yeah,
he's based out
Ilya.
of BFA, Denver, and that's it.
Wow, I was thinking you guys had more than that. That's a lot to
Yeah.
cover the
Well, so
whole.
we have Jason, right? But
Yeah.
he is focused mostly on product development at this point. He does do some trainings, request Western
Usually they
Canada.
send him to Asia or some other foreign country. Like he's over there getting the royal treatment. I've heard some of his stories are hilarious, by the way. But yeah, he's all over the world.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, that's it. That's who you get.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I last question I want to ask, and this could be a non-issue, right? Like it's in 911. So 911 on the dispatching side, my guess is that a heavily female oriented job?
We were split at our department.
Okay.
Split kind of right down the middle.
But EMS in general is more male dominated, or
I think I've seen the trend of that.
have you? Well, like, let me say this. My daughter is a paramedic in Atlanta, and she's like, a lot of times she's the only woman on scene, and she's 25 and, telling everybody what to do, of course, because that's her job as a paramedic on scene, at least in Atlanta. So I'm glad to hear that it's kind of down the middle. Now, do you see, are we getting more females in the industry? Like, are we, or do you think this is a loaded question, right? But like, this is a world that I've lived in since 2016, which is like tradeswomen that are in more male dominated industries, and just that whole, so I'm always interested in asking when I get the opportunity.
Okay. Day one, complete non-issue for me. Like for years, a non-issue. Did I recognize that maybe I was the only female in some of the early on trainings that I attended as a student? Absolutely. Did it bother me? Not one bit. I didn't care. So when people ask me, what's it like being a female in a male dominated industry? I don't know. I don't pay attention to
just
it.
A normal, it's just the same as every
I'm just a human. I'm a human being doing a job, running a business, making paint shiny like anybody else out there. I don't want this segregation. So I feel like the less we talk about it, maybe that's my avoidance. But I don't like talking about it because I don't want it to be a thing.
Right. Yeah. And I totally respect that. And I'll just retract the question completely because now I look stupid, but no, I'm just kidding.
No, it's all good.
No, but I mean, it's only an issue because I think that we would benefit as an industry if we had more women in the industry. That would be because we're just as a percentage, it's not.
I think there's a lot of women
smaller
in the industry that maybe haven't been spotlighted on their own choice. Does that make sense? Like maybe we as a whole, we don't know that they even are there doing the work that every other detailer, male or female,
because they're smarter and they're actually making money and they don't have to go on social media.
Right. But they're out there. Trust me, there are a lot of females in the industry. And maybe they just don't want to shed spotlight for that. The same reason that I just said, we don't want to be any different than the other. I feel like then there's like this separation and segregation.
Well, then I'm very glad that I asked the question, just because that's the answer that I want to hear, right? Like that's something that I, and with Michelle, my wife, doing all of the, she did the SEMA build. She's done 5 SEMA builds with all female tradespeople, welders, painters, all fabricators, all these crazy badass women. They tend to be very isolated in those particular trades, not by choice, but like it's much different. And I'm glad to hear that detailing in your experience is not that way. I mean, it's not like it's better than I would have expected, which is awesome.
Good. And maybe there's females out there that can prove me wrong. And please reach out if that's the case. I don't want to speak for all of them, but I feel like the ones that I have chatted with, that's kind of like the collective agreement. It's like, we're not looking to be, we don't want to stand out as we're the females in the industry. No, we're just in the industry.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and I had a conversation with Megan at MTE, and we were talking about Car Candy and how that's basically a female run company, right? Like we talked about that as kind of, an interesting aspect of it. And, I just think I love having those conversations because I think they're just intriguing to me
Yeah,
to kind of
absolutely.
see where that goes. But I love the.
I will add one thing to that.
Sure.
I think being a business owner as a female and gaining trust from the community as a female is a little bit easier, and maybe because sometimes women have an easier way of connecting with other women who are coming in to get their cars detailed. I find that to be a benefit. I will say that being a female business owner, you can earn trust from those coming in with their vehicle to hand their key over, especially women owners.
Yeah, because what's the perception of male automotive owners, right? Like they're all there to screw me over. They think I'm an idiot because about 80% of them have probably treated them like an idiot. You know, I grew up doing hot rods and car cultures and all that kind of stuff. And one of the girl I dated in high school, she was like, I mean, she could pull an engine apart in like 2 hours. I loved watching her go to parts stores and just make these men look like total morons because she knew 100, because she plays stupid. But like, I love that idea that like, if, you know, a female business owner can better connect. Now, here's the question. What can guys do to then make those kind of customers feel better? Like how do we, how do we do that?
If you're running a big enough shop where you can hire somebody that's your front end person as a female, do that.
Well, that way you've got both, right? Like if you got some alpha male dude like the Liver King coming in with his vehicle, you're going to talk to him. I'm going to go man to man with that guy or whatever if I feel like that's the right way to go. Or if you have a woman that seems more intimidated and you have a female staff person, then that's probably a better approach to that, right?
I have heard from other female detailers that some clients will like bypass them on the way to speak to the man of the shop. I don't know. I don't run into that ever. Maybe that's my community. Maybe that's the area I live in. That could definitely be part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
well,
put a female forward facing in your business will be helpful. How's that?
I love that. I mean, we're learning here. I'm, you know, I would say there's no way I'm ever the smartest guy in the room. And if I am, I'm in the wrong room. So I'm trying to learn over time because I have a certain level of experience and then I have a certain perspective, and then getting the new perspective is always something that intrigues me.
Learning, what's something that has surprised you by doing this podcast?
I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that we all have such different histories that lead us to where we are. I think that if you're, you know, even if you're 25 years old, right? Like my kids are 25 and 26. They have a history that have led them to this point. You know, my daughter just graduated from college, neuroscience. She's dealing with major health issues. She worked full time. She's basically completely deaf now, you know, all these other challenges, but that's part of her story that got her there. You know, when I hear your story going from 15 years in 911 and then owning your own shop and then working in training and getting better at training and having new opportunities, like all of that. And I just like, one of my main goals with this podcast and with everything that I'm doing is that exactly what we started talking about, which is I want to make authentic, genuine connections with other people. So now you and I have spent 70 minutes together, 75 minutes together now, and we're closer friends than we were when we started. And I think that that's really surprising to know that in that short amount of time that you can increase those connections. You know, and I've had friends that I've known for like 15 years on the podcast, and I'll learn a bunch of new stuff just from like the superhero backstory thing that I started doing. Right. And it's just, it's a lot of fun. And I'm very excited that you have I was like, hey, I need you to come on the podcast. Will you come on the podcast? And you're like, sure. All right. So that was easy. So this has been super cool. I love your Chevron.
Thank you.
And fire chief things. I actually have an old one in front of my shop, but they're not nearly as cool as that. Mine was from like the 80s or something, so it wasn't not nearly as cool as those things. But
thanks.
How would people learn more about what you guys got going on? How do they find about trainings? All of that.
You know, just follow us on social media. That's the easiest way. Trainings.
Social media, which you don't like doing.
I don't like to do. Oh, personally or Rupes?
Both. Yeah, both.
Uh, so to learn about trainings, it's on our website, rupesusa.com. Under trainings, we try to update those with things that we're doing all over the place. And we do post a little bit on social media every once in a while about it too. So there's that. Yeah.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
RUPES does do, and they're doing more of that, which is these cooperative trainings. There's a ton of that. Nazial was just there. I was there last week. Geotechnic does them. Like all of the, like literally all of them do them. IGL, I saw some posts this morning from your IGL event in March, and all of that stuff is going on all the time. So there's tons of opportunities pretty much wherever you live. You're going to be able to find something. And a lot of them are cool destination trainings too, what I call destination events, where it's like, hey, I want to go here, and so, yeah, go to rupesusa.com and check that out. Robyn, it's been a real pleasure. This has been super fun and eye-opening, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Awesome. I appreciate you.
Head over to detailersroadmap.com and get your one-stop success solution today.